Hey, 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 this is Seagrove, and today I'm here with the Aaron Tarbell.
What?
And I was just reading your Twitter handle, so.
Makes sense, yeah. It's a good
And
one.
we're going to be talking about the evolution of Expanded, and by we are going to be talking about it, I mean Aaron's going to be explaining it because I am pretty lost in Expanded. So I was thinking it would be kind of cool if I could talk to someone who understands how Expanded got to where it is, and then it could help me make a meta call. But I figured other people would want to hear it too. And so I asked Aaron if he would do a video with me because he's been pretty good in Expanded for quite some time, and he agreed. So, do you want to give a little introduction? We can get started.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Tarbell, and I am really good at Pokemon. So I've been playing since too long, and I've been around since Expanded first came out, and so now I'm going to give a brief history of Expanded. Expanded sucks until 2015 when Breakpoint's released. First tournament after that, Trev breaks out, and there's some weirdo that just goes out and wins a big tournament. And you can see kind of how the evolution of Expanded starts with Trev Break. Um, at
Okay.
that time, there's Trev, Dark, Night March, Toad, Rayquaza, and then some spin-offs, Blastoise, Groudon, VG, Sableye Garb, and even decks such as like Eels that was popular
Yeah.
before this kind of dies off around here.
And VG
And
is for
Brazen
Virgin
Genesect.
Genesect. And then
Yep, because
Eels.
Max X just came out.
Is Eels still Rayquaza Eels at that point, or is that like
No,
Eel Raikou?
Rayquaza Eels is way dead. It's Raikou Eels.
Okay.
So, by this time, once there's Trev, once there's Dark, and once there's Groudon, um, decks kind of fallen. Can I beat some of these decks or can I not? Because these decks kind of become unbeatable at this point. Like
Okay.
Travis, turn one item lock, spreads everything, just takes all of its prize one turn. That's crazy. And then Dark puts so much energy in play, is super consistent, has weakness on Trev, which is what it needs, what every deck needs. And then Groudon was a deck that said, I can sit back behind a Wob, and then in the last three turns of the game, I can come up with the EX Pokemon, take four prizes before it dies, guaranteed, and then bring up the last one, kill another EX, win the game. So you have a perfect game plan deck. You have a deck that locked you out of everything, and you had consistency that kind of just
Is that
had a fighting chance against those.
Breakpoint Darkrai?
Yeah,
Okay.
Breakpoint Darkrai comes out. Um, and Max Elixirs and everything, so everything that can abuse that. And then the rest kind of dies off, and the meta actually stays pretty stagnant up until 2017 Collinsville. Like when Fate's Collide comes out, you see people trying to use Zygarde and Carbink, and there's a small fighting deck that comes out, but mostly Night March, Trev, and Dark, and Toad all run rampant.
Okay.
Um, which some of those I didn't mention, but those are the big hitters. The more Dark is played, the worse Trevenant does, the better Night March does. The more, and it becomes rock paper scissors of just what's the most played deck.
Okay.
Then you see Steam Siege come out. You see Greninja do well because it gets access to Talonflame, and what you see is the same decks over and over. And then one big card comes out, they try to fit it into a meta and does really well once, and then it stops. Like
Is that just because
you'll,
people are ready for it, or?
yeah, because you'll see Greninja did really well at Phoenix in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
but come the next tournament, whenever there was um, after it had taken three of the top eight spots, none of the top 32 were Greninja just because everything smashed the deck and everybody was prepared for it.
Okay.
And you'll see Trev won with Crespo. And that was kind of cool because it really showed how Dark and Trev were there since Trev came out. And then for that winning in, there were four Dark decks, or so there were four Trev decks all playing on a winning in, and then there were three Dark decks and a Rainbow Road all playing against the Trev decks. And you'll see everyone the Trev decks, including myself, lost to the Dark decks, and then Crespo got the one
Rainbow
um,
Road.
Rainbow Road, and then he smashed it, ended up winning the tournament. All right, so the meta becomes pretty stagnant at this point, and then Collinsville hits, and there are some nice new beautiful cards that drop that kind of change everything. One is Giratina promo. Um, Forest was around, but now it has good targets other than just Vileplume. It gained Lurantis and Decidueye.
Hmm.
And so this was the first time ever that expanded kind changed up. So you'll see that three beautiful, good new cards came in, and everything's different now. Um, Lurantis Vileplume was hands down the best deck. Ross played it. First, he ended up in top 8, top 4, but didn't win. But you'll see Azul won later with it, and it's probably the reason that Forest Giant Plants ended up being banned, just because being able to lock your opponent, accelerate energy, heal damage, have weakness on what it needs to have weakness on, was just all too good at the time.
Okay. I thought it
Okay.
was because of Decidueye Vileplume, but it was the Lurantis.
Decidueye Vileplume was not as good as Lurantis Vileplume and expanded.
Okay.
Can't super tell you why, but I do remember that uh, I felt confident. Well, it was the two energy attachments that kind of killed Decidueye and expanded because um, three of the 10 playable decks all were decks that just controlled energy and would control you out and bring up the Vileplume.
Okay.
Lurantis would accelerate the energy to the Vileplume or to another Lurantis, and then if you locked the Vileplume, they just escape.
Okay.
All right. So Guardy even saw some play at this time because you could play the Giratina promo to get around Trev, and then it kind of just tanked all the damage from dark decks. And I'm talking about Mega Gardevoir, the one that said
Right.
for one energy in Dimension Valley, discard your entire bench, so you didn't have any targets. So it's kind of like Rayquaza, dealt a lot of damage, but you could play Max Potion since his one energy didn't die.
Hmm.
So you saw a lot of really cool gimmick decks because these gimmicks were absolutely unbeatable by something that wasn't expected.
Right.
So that's kind of the way just expanded kind of evolved into. Um, then we get to this year, which I'm finishing up with my old days rant. And then for this year, we get I forget the set that dropped at Worlds, but
Um,
it
Burning
has
Shadows.
Burning Shadows, as Guardy, Ho-Oh, and Glisspod. And so we go into our first expand tournament of the year, which was Fort Wayne, and then we have all the old decks, and they're all super great. Like, good job. And then you have Forest, which was just banned, so Lurantis isn't playable because that still would have been able to keep up with all the new stuff. So we
Right.
have a lot of old school expanded decks that are usable, and then some new stuff that was kind of good against the old stuff. So Guardy, obviously very good. Big Mewtwo, uh, still played. Um, that's able to compete with a lot of decks from before just because Guardy by itself is a very good card.
For sure.
Ho with Blacksmith was very good because you got around just water weakness against Toad. So you could see compressor decks with Ho did really well, like Sam Chen made second with Ho. And then what I opted into was Glisspod Zorg because really the way the meta broke down was there are some lock decks which Glisspod was really good against, and there are some big hitting decks which um, Zoroark Black and White was really good against because you just copy their attacks. And even though I didn't manage to break a tournament win, in my eyes, that was the best deck in that format because the one prize exchange deck, which was Night March, that had huge success, was a good matchup since you had enough spread to kind of deal with the low HP,
Hmm.
and you just pried on all of the weaknesses of the best decks.
Right.
Um, and then it breaks down. Drompagarb is very good in a format like that because everything expanded. The best cards in the game are item cards. You can play as many item cards as you want. Garb's good against decks that play item cards. So Garb is one of those cards that's always going to be around expanded. Ended up winning Florida this year. And then Trev is always very good against item heavy decks. And then Nine March is a very item heavy deck, but good whenever people don't play against it, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
So what we've learned so far is that expanding gets really stagnant until milestones drop,
Right.
which are just one or two big cards that change the format, which is where we get current with San Jose regionals, where It's the first tournament that we see Zoroark GX be played.
Yeah.
Zoroark GX, broken card. Um, every card in your hand is effectively a Pot of Greed. One of the best cards that we printed in this game, especially
Yeah.
being a stage 1 easy. So, of course, play if you have access to every card in the game, you play the best card and you kind of make it work with anything.
Right.
That's kind of what you see happen at San Jose. So we'll see top 8 be Zoroark Reliant decks or Zoroark things that could include Zoroark decks easily, like splash into the current meta, and then decks that kind of pride on Zoroark. So we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 8 decks with Zoroark in them.
And then 2 Drampa. Is that right?
Gyarados and Wailord.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we're not to Drampa yet,
Right.
but Drampa's still around, but he's not necessarily good enough right off the bat. He's not as openly accepted because no one's ready to play him. Everyone's ready to play that good card that just came out. So we'll see that milestone. Whenever the good card's obvious, everyone plays it, and so we see 6 decks that play a good card, and then 2 decks that can kind of beat it. I don't know why Gyarados was in here. Someone
Ahmed?
messed. Yep, Ahmed.
Okay.
Someone messed up and let him in the top 8. But you can see Drew kind of pried on the DC reliant decks and was able to kind of bully his way into just taking off all the DCs, and then the rest is just Zoroark decks that could use what was already good. So Zoroark Lycanroc, it was a Zoroark deck with a fighting Pokemon to kill Zoroarks. Really good, 2 of the places. And then there was Night March, had 1 prize tactics that kills Zoroark, abuse Zoroark's ability to draw cards and discard Pokemon in need to. Very good, kind of basic how that one played out. But then the cool part is whenever you see something like this happen, most of the time expanded it changes.
Right.
We start to realize what the issue is, and we start to realize if there's such a good card, we have thousands of cards to choose from expanded, we can beat it. Well, come Dallas, we don't figure it out yet.
Zoroark's just too good.
Yeah, Zoroark is the best card to be released in a very long time, and so a lot of players showed up not knowing how to, still either on the Zoroark train or realizing that there's very few ways to beat Zoroark. And so I remember Swiss in Dallas, I played against 7 Zoroark decks.
Wow.
Just because everybody played it. And some of the good players kind of played weird stuff in order to counteract it. Brings us back to Garb. Garb was played and made multiple spots in top 8s for a few reasons. One, it had the potential to bully the energy off of it, because one of the reasons why one of the weaknesses of Zoroark is that it's very special energy reliant and doesn't have to play too many in order to be good.
Yeah.
But things that remove that special energy and can stop you from hitting it, take your great card and make it something that's not doing as many good things as it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
So we see Drampa, we see Drampa Garb, which was a good deck before, but is obviously a direct counter to Zoroark because everything in the deck is good, because you have Drampa removes energy, Garb turns off trade so they can't hit their energy, and then
Parallel
something
and
Parallel or
Sudowoodo.
damage output of Skyfield doesn't, so they can't go off every turn, and then Trash Lunch Garbs is even good against it because they end up discarding a lot of items and expanding, because their deck is mostly items, because all the good cards, something that says they can one-shot everything, and then just Zoroarks. So we see 3 out of the top 8 being really reputable players playing this, and then every other of the 5 decks are still Zoroark. The top 3 decks are Zoroark Red Card, and the other 2 are Zoroark Lycanroc.
Yeah.
Turns out the fighting Pokemon in Zoroark isn't the best way to beat Zoroark at this time. It's telling Zoroark you have a small hand and can't use trade next turn, taking a knockout and then taking another knockout back to back. So that's why you see Red Card in the top 3 spots at Dallas, and then 2 there's a Glyph spot actually. It's not 2 Lycanrocs, it's Zoroark Lycanroc and Zoroark Glyph spot.
So that was red
Um,
card Hex that was so strong against
Red
the other
Card Hex was
Zorgs.
the combo that came into this meta and kind of changed things.
Okay.
I know Dustin Zimmerman, I both showed up playing Red Card Hex in our Zoroark deck, and then we played a bunch of counter energies with one prize basics with so we can take cheap knockouts on weird things with weakness. Um, our decks just wasn't the most consistent even with the Zoroarks, but Dustin made day two with it, and it's a good deck overall.
Okay.
And you can kind of see like you played Zoroark, you beat Zoroark, or you didn't place.
Right.
So, all right. So then we go to Costa Mesa. New set drops. Really cool card is released. Glaceon. Glaceon is really bad in standard because it has low damage output, not enough HP to take two hits, and then um, it's just mediocre. But if you take a card that says Zoroark doesn't have an ability and give it the ability to heal off all the damage it takes, it becomes a very good card whenever Zoroark is the entire format. So you see Glaceon Barbarical show up, which is a very cool deck that I really enjoyed, where
Yeah. I remember you
you
talking
take
about
away their
that.
abilities. Yep. You take away the abilities, you stop them from attaching that one energy that they play, and then you beat the best deck in format 90% of the time. And then if they do attack you, you heal it off so you can survive another one. So that showed up, but you still see it wasn't big enough to take a whole lot of spots. There were some good players that showed up and all did well with it or kind of mediocre. But kind of how the meta shakes down in Costa Mesa is Zorik's been dominant for two formats. We know Drompagard can kind of deal with it depending, but we need to start kind of resolving it. So you see fighting Buzzwole decks becoming a lot bigger. You see Groudon resurging because it turns off the ability of Lob and then is able to take two. It's able to do the perfect game plan just like before.
Hmm.
So Zorak still kind of struggles with that because unless it overwhelms it, like it can do, but it doesn't like to. Um, and then so we see Zorak show up, Zorak decks that beat Zorak, and everything else designed to just beat the one good card that came out. And so it shakes down. Drompagard ends up winning. Daniel Lynch made second with with uh, just Riley's, a very similar list to Riley's, just because Lonzo Zorak with red card with eggs is just very good.
So he put in
Um,
the executor to like undo the Hex red card chain, right?
I don't, I don't know. I know that before Dallas, I had mentioned it as a joke to my friends, but I didn't. We didn't end up playing it because we decided to play counter energies instead. But I don't know what it's for, but blockade was very very good back in the day whenever there was no item or ability draw. So just being able to do that with and just take cheap knockouts, weakness on Wailord, and um, something cool about Executor is that you can go up blockade a Wailord because Wailord made top eight once. People still like to play it, and then only let them use their item cards to discard the energies where they want to use Lusamine and Team Flagrants over and over, and you have weakness on them, which is nice.
Right.
But you see, there's still a ton of Zoroark dominance, even at this point. Drompagarb still there. They know Drompagarb can beat it, so a lot of good players play it. Glaceon catches on for its first tournament just because it can heal off damage and on good hands really just be unbeatable to a Zoroark deck. But still, the meta is just all about how to beat Zoroark. Zoroark's still the centerpiece. There's no, and even going into the most recent regional, Zoroark's still the centerpiece. It didn't win Costa Mesa, but it's so hard to not realize that trade and one shots and a lot of HP is just a good card in this game because
Right.
that's you take every good possibility to have in the game, you put in one card, it's still there. All right, so then we finally get to the most recent one, which is my favorite to talk about because I get to stop talking about Zorak a little bit. Because Zorak's still big. Just everybody and their cousin was like, we're playing Sudowoodo or we're not playing in this tournament. So, and Sudowoodo says Zorak has a fine attack, not the best attack in the game like it was, but a fine attack now. And it's more manageable. So you see the meta kind of shake down where only one Zorak goes and makes it in the top 8. Instead, we see in top 32 people with Buzzwall Wide Lens because
Right.
it beats Zorak. And the fighting has been an okay type always with strong energy and focus sash, but being able to limit Zorak's damage, take 2 prizes on the first turn, and stop Zorak's from coming out, obviously good. That's the reason it did well. And then Drampa Garb is a combination that will always be good against everything. Like, it's a perfect game plan because you turn off everything you want. You turn off special energies, you turn off abilities, and you turn off your opponent playing items in a weird way.
Right.
So you can always expect Drampa Garb to be present. But also having a chance to beat Zorak, given just the mechanics in the game, gave it 3 of the top 8 spots. And then we see something I really like is that Guardy showed up because we see Travis, my boy, and we see Emilio, who I don't know who that is, in top 8 with Guardy. And the reason Guardy kind of died off was because Guardy couldn't deal with Zorak's early pressure. Well, it could deal with Zorak's early pressure. It couldn't deal with Night March version of Zorak because it was one prize attackers that didn't need a whole lot of setup,
Right.
taking prizes on your big GX guys that are supposed to survive. So now most of them are designed to beat Zorak. Okay, let me take a step back.
Okay.
Because everything's designed to beat Zorak, by the time this tournament goes around, people start thinking they don't have to beat Zorak as much. So you see a resurgence of Trevenant, which is weak to Dark, but can beat Zorak, depending if you can remove the energies and kind of just stream Trevenants. We see a resurgence of Greninja, for no reason. Bad deck. We see a resurgence of Guardy, and we see a resurgence of a bunch of things that just aren't Night March, because Night March has been kind of having a rough time recently because Night March doesn't like Drampa Guard very much because it likes to play its items, and Night March does not like Trevenant. And then there were some mill decks in there as well. Like, I think there was even a Durant. There's a Durant somewhere that I heard about.
And Night March couldn't handle Zorak either.
Yeah. It could go 50-50 with Zorak. It wasn't.
The Hex red card I felt was like pretty hard for it
Yeah.
to deal with. But
Okay.
oh yeah, you're right. Oricorio and Drampa Garb just completely shut it down too.
Yeah.
Double Oricorio at one point.
Once Night March stops being a thing, Guardy gets to come back and be like, I'm not going to lose to these one prize attacker that's everywhere and the only deck a lot of newer players show up with to expand tournaments. So we see Guardy get a resurgence. We see Buzzwole start being played because they figure out Wide Lens can deal with Zorwas. We see Mildex, and we see a Donphan. I don't know why we see a Donphan. But we see a lot of really cool things start to show up because they start to figure out there's been this one gimmick for a very long time, which is Zorak. And then they pry on 3 weaknesses: ability, attack, and the energy cost. Which everything has a weakness in this game. So Guardy can survive Zorak attacks, return 1-shots, and be good against it. So Guardy did well, Drampa Garb did well, Sableye Garb did well because he can beat a lot of things. I think Sableye Garb also had a pretty okay Zorak matchup before. I don't know. It's just one of those weird decks that if it doesn't stop, it doesn't win. So it could have won any of these tournaments before once Trev stopped being good. It's a really weird deck to see do well. because it just requires a whole lot. But all right, so that's my history. Zorak was released. Zorak beat everything. People changed decks to beat Zorak. That's it. That's all there is right now.
And can you talk any more about the Sableye Garbodor? Like what allowed that to like you said it can beat Zoroark.
Yeah.
What things are good against it?
What
Toad's
things are
pretty good
good
against it.
against Sableye Garb?
Yeah.
The things that have always been good against Sableye Garb are okay. So the concept of Sableye Garb, you have a Sableye that recycles items that you can recycle the most busted cards in the game, mostly in puzzle time that lets you choose what they are on your turn, so you get access to any 2 cards in the game on your turn. Expanded, you have the biggest pool of cards in a competitive format.
Right.
So Sableye plus any card in the game times 2 per turn is very good. Then you combine it with Garb because Garb says there are a lot of abilities. Let's shut those off, make things slower so I have time to kind of use every card I want to. And then you have Trash Lance now, which lets you come back. So the weaknesses to Sableye Garb have always been if you don't allow them to play the items, their deck is much worse because they're using bad attacks because the attacks aren't going to do anything. So Sableye Garb does a lot worse whenever people are attacking in Toads, whenever Trevenant's good, whenever just things that can lock you out of the game are good. The next thing that kind of stops Sableye Garb from being good is being overwhelmed. So if you see decks that can set up pretty fast, if you see decks that are setting up slower and slower, like Guardy, which relies on stage 2s, versus decks like Glisspod that was all just stage 1s and basic energy, so they'd have to rely on crushing hammer flips. It's going to have a better time against Guardy than it is against Zorak Glisspod because at least that had basic energies in it as well. And then if it hit a field blower off a top deck once in a while, it could draw all the cards and then be back in the game. So it could beat Zorak decks, straight Zorak decks, because it was easy to get back enhanced hammers. If you locked them to a hand of 0, you could trick shovel them out of a game. And so it could kind of compete with Zorak, but still not something I want to play into a Zorak deck, just because Zorak has a chance to go, here's my 4 Zoraks, one-shot everything for the entire game, and then draw into my cards just from hitting high counts of field blowers.
So is it in trouble now with it seems like Buzz is going to be absolutely busted and expanded.
Yeah, I don't believe Sableye Garb will be showing up very heavily. The problem with anytime a Wailord deck, well, I guess now it's just mostly Wailord, but anytime Durant, a Wailord, or a Sableye Garb shows up, that thing is hated out of the format by the next tournament.
Okay.
People don't like to lose the mill decks, and there are plenty of answers to mill decks and expanded. So, and then Buzzwall gets a boost. So let's kind of bring it back to looking at. So let's go ahead and just start talking about what we're gonna do for Virginia.
Okay.
All right. So Virginia's cool because we get access to some new milestone cards. One is B-String. 2 is something that will come to me later. But there's this old card, comes from Boundaries Cross, was Landorus. Landorus drops, does 30 to the active, 30 to a bench. That card was good from the day it came out. And then it became better and better. And then it kind of dies off just because it's still a little bit slow and you can't use the second attack as much as you need to, because at a second attack that could take him.
Right.
The anti-prism. Maybe. Alright. So we're getting a lot of Buzzwole boosts. We're getting B-String and Diancie Prism. So we're having a card.
And Baby Buzz.
And Baby Buzz, but that's not that big of a deal in expanded.
It's so good against Zorak, but yeah.
Yep. Alright, so for expanded, what you're going to see is you're going to see someone go Focus Sash on my Buzzwole, so it doesn't die. Strong Energy, and Diancie Prism Star on the bench. Turn 1. That's 70-30. That's dead every good basic in the game that I can think of that evolves. And then it's not going to die on the next turn coming into it. Or a Wide Lens, kill a Zorua, so you don't have to worry about Zoroarks overwhelming
Right.
you like they could in the past. Also, you're going to have a Sudowoodo on the bench. You're not going to deal with Zoroark. Buzzwole's going to show up with the not the goal, but just the acceptance that it's going to beat any Zoroark deck it touches.
Okay.
Because it'll have Wide Lens by now, it'll have B-String, and it'll have Diancie. So it'll show up, pop all Zoras on the bench, that's it. Now for every other deck, because still that's not... Doing 70 on your first turn and 32 bench hasn't been super competitive, but turning it into a card that says, from turn 2 I'm going to have 3 fully loaded up, hitting for 190 damage, or 180, and then a Focus Sash on them, making them not die coming in my next turn, is a really good combination. So we're going to see a huge turnout for Buzzwole at the first tournament. Now, we got to think, if we want to win, either take the Buzzwole train. It's a good train to be on. It's really hard to beat. Or try to figure out how to beat that, and keep in mind Zoroark. So the next step we do is So first bad thing about Buzzwole now is that it's item reliant. That's good. So we'll see Drampa Garb still will have a good Buzzwole matchup to an extent, as long as it's more Garb Espeon focused than Drampa, unlike what it was before.
Okay.
You'll probably see a resurgence of Espeon GX and Expanded, just because 120 confused, and then the ability to Psychic anything later in the game, on top of just having Trash Lunge as a 1 prize assurance to knock out a Buzzwole.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see Psychic that can beat Zoroark and beat Buzzwole show up. Then you'll have another Psychic deck that can beat Buzzwole consistently and can beat Drampa Garb consistently, which is Trev. You'll have that show up, because that's one of the reasons it showed up so big at Salt Lake.
Garb consistently?
It definitely has a good chance to beat Drampa Garb. Okay. It doesn't like that Drampa can Berserk, but if you can't Berserk for knockout, Trevenant can deal with it. Trevenant doesn't like being one-shot.
Yeah.
So if you one-shot Trevenant, it's bad. But Trevenant has always dealt with being two-shot. So if it can survive one attack, you're fine.
Okay.
And then also, just the way the energy attachments work for Drampa, because it's all very slow, single, double. And that you're able to evolve into the break before it really matters, or they'll go Righteous Edge and then evolve, and then they will Berserk for 150 and it won't matter if you're in the break or not. Also, counter energies on Trevenant are really good, especially on super aggressive decks like Buzzwole. Okay. So, because you can go counter energy, 1 turn, load up a Tree Slam. If you wanted to run Choice, you don't want to run Choice Band, but if you ran Choice Band, that'd be 180 with a counter energy and then 22 bench.
So you just are you accepting the Zoroark loss there?
So the cool thing about Trev is that it doesn't ever just...
It doesn't lose to anything, right? It doesn't
because
auto
you go
lose to anything.
And you stop them from playing cards.
And if they don't have any, if they have all items or a lot of items, you can just win.
Yeah, because Expand is just the item-heavy format, and Zoroark's kind of a cool matchup because they still evolve. Even though they're dark and they one-shot you, and you don't like being one-shot, you can still kind of deal with Zoroark with a bunch of Enhanced Hammers and Rescue Scarves. Unfortunately, that means Bursting Balloon is probably dead. But the Rescue Scarf version, being able to just consistently pump out Trevenants, keep the item lock, spread the 30s, and then get a free attack with Espeon off with Dimension Valley, probably means that you beat any Zoroark deck that goes blindly Bridget on turn 1. if you go first or if you just lock them out of the game before they get going. So
Okay. So you
it's
can
not the
beat a bad player, or you can get lucky.
yes
Okay.
that that is the gimmick behind Trev.
You can
You
always
can
get
get
lucky.
lucky against anything, or you can just beat people for making mistakes.
Okay.
Um, so far we have really good deck. The second really good deck that's been around for a long time that loses to the first really good deck, which is Zorg. And then we have a lock deck that comes into play that can kind of compete with the first two. So really going into expanded, we as players need to like as people wanting to win, we need to look at those three decks and decide if there's anything that can kind of compete with those because those have the biggest drops in the game right now. Like Zork, one of the best cards. Buzzwole, B String is a very good game plan.
It's very good.
And then Trevenant being able to have a weird advantage over Buzzwole is
Does
probably enough to keep it competitive.
does
And then drop a card.
Trevenant how good of a matchup does Trevenant have against Buzz?
If you go turn one item lock, I don't think Buzz can win if you have a good hand. Like if you go turn one Wally and
Uh-huh.
then Buzz doesn't get out of it,
Okay, so then
it's
what
probably
about
going
like
to
a
be over.
Zygarde? Are they running a Zygarde or
Zygarde has never done anything to Trev.
okay.
Um, the only time people said it did was there was one time whenever Carbink was played with it, and so what they would do is they'd have Zygardes explicitly for Trev with a bunch of max potions. So whenever they could break the lock, they'd max potion and go back
Okay.
with Carbink to accelerate to it, retreat out, keep healing itself,
And
which
then
is kind of rough for Trev, but um,
were you getting to another deck that you were about to say? You were saying we need to be considering those three.
so there are those four, including Jampagard.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What do you think about Guardy?
so I have a cool setup for Guardy, but it's not good. The problem with Guardy right now is that Guardy really so setup decks whenever they take a lot of setup in order to make their Pokemon, they don't like it when the Pokemon dies.
Right.
And Buzzwole really likes to kill things.
Okay.
So
So Buzzwole's the gatekeeper right now, no longer at Zoroark. Is that
yeah,
right?
I
Okay.
feel like giving Buzzwole a B string and a Diancie is enough to make Buzzwole the gatekeeper with all of the cards in expanded.
Yeah.
Because everyone can continue to run the pseudo Udos to kind of stop uh, Zorak from taking off and getting a manageable Zorak matchup. While again Buzzwole, there's not a whole lot of decks that can deal with early pressure plus focus sash one shots.
Yeah.
Also, the cool thing about Buzzwole is that it's gonna scare off mill decks, or it should. Uh, because if someone has a 1/1 Carbink in their Buzzwole deck, they'll beat every mill deck in the room. Because Carbink accelerates energy, you can't deal with all that energy coming back from somewhere it's not supposed to be. You beat every mill deck.
Right.
Two, the accelerants, and there's nothing with enough HP to kind of deal with Buzzwole's pressure right now. Like Guardy is as close as it gets, and there's a cool combo you can do with Guardy where you have Maxis and Diantha, and then you can run a compressor engine where you just put your entire deck in your discard, and then depending on the turn, you either one put a Glade in play, go up, kill a Zorak, or attack really hard, or two rare candy Guardy, drop the Guardy and draw some cards with Octillery on that turn.
Okay.
So while Guardy gets better, the field against it gets a lot harder. Buzzwole also has a super nice Night March matchup with Focus Sash and being able to, between Beast Energy and Diancie, you can one-shot a Pumpkaboo on the first turn,
Mm-hmm.
which Night March definitely does not like. Because that was kind of the old goal, is just to have a Pumpkaboo survive a few turns and then
Right.
just deal with the fighting Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So Night March might not see a lot of play.
You don't think
Some
you don't think Night March can handle Buzzwole?
I don't think
With
Night March can handle new Buzzwole very as well as it needs to.
okay.
Because if it has a wide lens and a Beast Energy, it's gonna get rid of the Zoroark on the bench, so it can't draw all the cards it wants to anymore. It could go back to old school, but old school's bad. I don't like it. I don't like. I've never really liked Night March, but I don't. I definitely don't like Night March without the sick draw engine that was given
Okay.
with Zoroark. Um, I do.
I feel like if they're playing Blower, they can make it happen against Buzzwole.
They can definitely make it happen. Yep, the one prize, the two prize is always very tough for fighting decks against Night March, because there's a lot of times where I showed up with a fighting deck and went strong energy dead, and they got rid of the focus sash, and it was just, and I was dead in the water. So Night March is probably the best Zoroark deck. It has the best matchup for a Zoroark deck against it. Think of any really good psychic Pokemon for Zoroark counter energy to have a good Buzzwole matchup off the top of my head. Um,
I feel like Buzzwole's gonna beat Zoroark no matter what.
yeah.
Especially if you're playing like a pseudo or a baby Buzz, like.
Oh yeah.
Tough.
Which the deck is so good as is. There's no reason why I can't have like just a few dead cards against everything else whenever it guarantees matchups.
Right.
Like a 1/1 Carbink doesn't matter until you play against a Sableye, and then it really matters.
Yeah.
So, I do think Sylveon has a place, because Sylveon just did well. But Sylveon really doesn't like me. And Sylveon kind of gets around B-String too, right? Because it can get in there and just not attack and kind of
Oh, okay.
run Buzzwole out of all of its energies if they don't play Carbink. So I think Sylveon Diantha is able to beat the Buzzwole decks.
That's interesting.
Yep. So it can give you access to your puzzles again, so you can, well, you don't Diantha for puzzles, you just Diantha
For whatever you want.
Yep. Well, actually, you can Diantha for puzzles to hold them for another turn.
Okay.
That's a cool interaction. But I do think Buzzwole with a 1/1 Carbink is what I'm leaning towards as the best deck right now, and then
Yeah,
things that can compete with it, because the reason you see all these decks that show up and are really good and dominant and expanded is because people say it won't be played that much, or they try to do their own thing because they have such a big card pool. But really, the best decks are always good enough to kind of just roll through everything.
Yeah.
And Buzzwole's definitely has been given the tools to become one of the best decks and expanded.
Yeah.
Zoroark will stick around. Drompagar will stick around because it can, with an Espeon, can compete with the Buzzwole deck. You'll probably see a resurgence in Trevenant a little bit harder than last time. Guardy will probably be heavily played, but will not perform very well because Guardy just did well. People want to play Guardy. Guardy's a good deck. People will see the B-String and Buzzwole, and they will lose. And then Glaceon will drop out of play because it can't compete with being one-shot.
Yeah. Can't compete with Buzz.
Yep. I don't think Greninja is a real deck.
I don't think it's very good at all.
All right.
Expanded. You don't have to convince me of that. So.
But and then Buzzwole also has the pressure, has immediate like way too much pressure for the Sableye guard to handle.
Yeah.
Because you go strong energy, Diancie on the bench, knockout 30, and then Sableye's already on the back foot.
It's weak to fighting, yeah.
It's not weak to fighting,
Oh,
or
okay.
else Landers could have always been a good answer to it, but
What's it weak to? No weakness or?
no weakness
Okay.
and no resistance.
Okay.
But
70 is very obtainable now. Attainable
yeah,
now.
on a non the the old thing that was keeping fighting back, the two big things were unreliable acceleration and the limits to its early numbers. And it was given two great things to get over its early limits, and then consistent acceleration starting from turns um, 2 through 4 and expanded typically,
Yeah.
which is how fast I think things are going to take prizes on me, or they're going to try to lock me out of the game.
Okay.
So
Uh,
that's where I think Virginia is going. I don't see anything else being too good unless there's something else in the set I'm missing. Is there anything in the set that you think I'm missing for expanded?
no, I I I think Buzzswole is out of this world good, like just ridiculous. And so I think you need to be playing Buzzswole, or if you can find anything that actually truly beats it, that's
Yep.
good too.
Uh, I think ex- so. Sylveon gets kind of a boost if it can get past the early turns with Buzzwole and they don't play Carbink. Um, what is it? There's a bad enhanced hammer
And a
that's
porter,
around. Yep. That might be cool and expanded.
I'm not a believer, but
All right, but
uh,
what was the set called? Forbidden Light. Oh, something I want to talk about is why why Malamar is going to do so well in standard but suck in expanded.
Hex.
Um, so Malamar is going to do so well in standard, maybe, and it's going to be absolutely god awful in expanded.
Okay.
All right,
I agree. Why is that?
so first, John Pagarb is really good against it. Being able to ability lock a deck that likes abilities and have weakness on some of its attackers, especially its flex attackers, and having just answers to every card in the deck. Um, John Pagar will be played, and it's a direct counter to it. The next deck you need to worry about is Trevenant. Trevenant will lock you out of the game turn 1, which that's not around in standing, so you don't have to worry about it as much. But though I do want to point out that Malamar has had success in Japan already, so I could just be talking bad. This could not mean anything, but I do. But Trevenant stomps the deck because Trevenant stomps eels, and now it gets weakness on everything. Trashland stomps the deck because you like to play too many items, and it will turn off your accelerants. Um, Everything counters Zoroark and expanded, and you really with Sudowoodo and you really don't like having a Sudowoodo against a deck that needs to set up eels. And Buzzwole, I think Buzzwole can beat it. Buzzwole is probably a pretty okay matchup. I'm not worried about it, especially with Focus Sash. If you
Right.
Focus Sash Buzzwole, it's not gonna die.
And then there's Hex, so Zorak should beat it as well.
Yeah. Zorak
If I Hex red card, I
might
feel
struggle a
pretty
little bit.
good.
Yeah. Oh, there's Hex Maniac. There's Hex Maniac. Yeah, the deck doesn't exist. My bad, guys. Next time.
Cool. Well, I think you've pretty much covered everything. Unless you have anything else you want to add, we could do shout out. If you have any shout outs or anything.
Okay, shout outs to Team Pokeyoke. My boy Sam is running that, and he's great. Congratulations to Travis for just making top 4 at Utah. I'm very proud of that boy. He deserved to win. He keeps choosing not to win these regionals. We'll talk to him about it. We'll have a private conversation, just me, Seagrove, and Travis.
Okay.
And then there's also a Lysander and expanded that if Buzzwole doesn't show up, Volcanion might be okay. But that's bad. All right.
All right.
And I'm going up to Vancouver, so I'm gonna win that, and then I'll come back and I'll talk to you guys and have more shoutouts.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully this has been helpful for people who are trying to understand expanded like myself. I haven't played since Zoroark came out, so like
Like you haven't played Pokemon since Zoroark
I
came
haven't
out, or
played
expanded?
expanded.
Okay, so Skyfield Zoroark just beats everything.
I picked that up. So,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you again, and good luck everybody in Toronto and in their expanded musings. Peace.